It was about 5 years ago that my wife and I were looking for land. Well, we'd been looking for a long time, but 5 years ago we bought this land. The thing we really liked about it is that it was relatively close to town, but there weren't a lot of other people around. From the highway to our property, there were 3 other houses, and one of them was down a really long driveway, so you pretty much couldn't see it. We built our house. And in that time, 2 other people built houses. So now, if you go from the highway to the edge of our property, the population has doubled. Now, I'm a man who loves freedom and independence, and that's one of the reasons why we moved out here. You know, I wanted to get a little bit of space. I wanted to get an area around my house that I could do my own thing. I wanted to get away from all the rush and the hubbub and the busyness and the noise of other people. I wanted to be kind of alone out here, a little bit isolated. And then more people start moving in, and it just kind of takes away from that. You know, people would build a house, I'm like, they're building a house. Just like I did. Now, the real story here starts in spring. My neighbor across the road is one of the greatest people you will ever meet. One of the kindest gentlemen I've ever known. Now, if I went to him and said, I really need your pickup truck. I absolutely need it. Can I have your truck? He would give it to me. Almost to the point where I would not be surprised if I went and said, listen, I need your house. My family and I need to move into your house. Can we move in here with you? Permanently. He would probably say yes. Absolutely one of the most giving people you could ever meet, and he's an amazing person. Now, if we go back to spring of this year when this whole COVID pandemic started, there was a couple from this city. Not the town that I live by, but the big city that's further out. They started driving out in the country looking for a place to plant a garden. It seems like an odd thing to do, but at the same time, somewhat reasonable. They happened down our road and saw that my neighbor had a plot of land that was used for gardening and thought maybe he'll let us plant a garden there. So they drove into the driveway, they asked him, and he, of course, he said yes. And I thought that was kind of interesting because at the beginning of this pandemic, we were all supposed to social distance and self-isolate, and now this new car was coming here 3, 4, 5 times a week. I just thought it was strange. Most of us don't really care about any of this stuff, and we certainly haven't been social distancing, but I just thought that was different. So I ended up talking to my neighbor a few weeks later and kind of learned what was happening. I thought, oh cool, that's great, that's neat. Now fast forward a month or two, my neighbor came over and said, listen, these people want to park their RV out in my field. Are you fine with that? And I said, sure, I mean, it's your land. If they want to store a trailer there, they can store it. So they brought the trailer out here and started camping in it. And I thought this was weird because there is a lone tree out there, but we're on the bald Alberta prairies. I mean, they're camping in a hayfield. It kind of bothered me. It kind of started to like, really? I buy a piece of land, I move out of the city, and now I've got people camping in front of my house. Not right in front of my house, but you get the whole feeling. So after a few weeks of that, camping 1 or 2, 3 nights a week, I noticed they started making trips back and forth with my neighbor's bobcat. I don't think they've ever driven a bobcat before, just watching the way they operate, and they start digging up his field over there. And then they started building these pallet things, and I think it's a composting section, and I think they're putting in their own garden plot. Now, I haven't been over there. I'm not Snoopy McGee. I kind of am. I'm just standing here from my window looking, but yesterday was kind of like this semi-truck comes down the road with a shipping container on the back of it. Lo and behold, it backs in there and plops the shipping container down kind of where they have their garden plot set up. And instantly I was like, are you freaking kidding me? That's it. I'm calling the county. But then I thought about it for a minute. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing the county can do because they're all temporary buildings. They're not building a building without a permit. They're moving mobile shelters on there. And then I got to think about it a little further. Even if they were building buildings there, it's not my land. I own 13 acres. I expect to be able to do as I please on these 13 acres. They're mine. I paid for them. My neighbor's land is not mine. I realized in that moment how incredibly hypocritical I was being. Me, as a man who demands freedom and I stand for freedom, and yet I wanted to foist my personal opinion, my preferences, on my neighbor, on his property. Thinking about everything that's going on in society right now, it made me realize a very important thing is that if we want to be free people, we have to respect the freedom of others. And it's so easy not to do that. It was so easy for me to sit there and be frustrated that there's a shipping container that I look out when I face that direction, and then there's a house that's like I could throw a baseball at it in this direction that wasn't there when I bought my land. But I only bought my land. I didn't buy that land. I didn't buy the other land. I didn't buy the land across the road. One sign of being an adult is that you can give yourself your own attitude adjustments. When I was a kid, my parents gave me attitude adjustments and I needed them. And this was an attitude adjustment for myself. I realized that, you know what? I'm not entitled to what happens across the road. That's not my land. I understand the reasons why we have building codes and stipulations to kind of, protect the general aesthetic. You don't want somebody buying some land and saying, I'm gonna put in a landfill. Makes sense. There are certain regulations that make sense. But for the most part, if I want to build a garden shed and a sea can and a little foraging shop, I should be allowed to. If somebody came to me and said, listen, I have a problem with all the outbuildings you're putting on your land, I would be right up in their face and I would be like, I'm a freedom fighter. I need to remember that when I think of my neighbors. Well, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheers. This is actually the third time I've recorded this. The first one, I wasn't happy with it. The second one, the camera failed. So let's hope, I got my microphone up here, that's why it sounds good. Let's hope this works.